Good evening and welcome to Perspective. Tonight we begin in Islamabad. Of course, the visit of King Abdullah II. Of course, it's brought Pakistan closer as far as Pakistan and Jordan, our long-standing ties are concerned. We'll be talking about how this visit will reinforce our strategic ties as far as cooperation on the economic front is concerned, regional cooperation is concerned, the interactions that took place while King Abdullah II was here. And a little later on, we'll also be talking about the Gaza peace plan that takes center stage as the UN prepares for a pivotal role. We've seen, of course, for a while the debate of the efficacy of institutions like the UN. When we look at it in the context of this particular plan, we'll be talking about its effectiveness, we'll be talking about the international push for stabilization in Gaza that is going to be facing a defining test. All of that today. Perspective, I have with me Muhammad Ajmal Iqbal, who's Pakistan's ambassador to Jordan. We'll be talking to him about this visit and what it will mean for the future as far as Pakistan and Jordan is concerned. A little later on, we'll also have with us Rula Samain, who is a writer, Interfaith Affairs specialist, editor-in-chief, Orthodox Club newsletter, CEO, ANOVIA magazine. And we'll have other guests during the course of the program. I'm going to go to Muhammad Ajmal Iqbal, who's, thank you so much for being with us, Your Excellency. How do you see King Abdullah's visit reshaping Pakistan and Jordan's strategic cooperation, especially, of course, in the light of what's happening in the Middle East at this time?
Accept this reality that this visit was much awaited and it has taken place after 7 years. Last time King Abdullah came, it was in 2018, and this visit is certainly in the backdrop of Pakistan's growing strategic significance in the aftermath of recent geopolitical environment. And during the visit, a wholesome consultation took place on issues related to Middle East and of this region, and especially the situation with Afghanistan and the prevailing tense environment on our eastern and western border. So all that has been discussed immensely. Besides that, the leadership also, very categorically showed desire to diversify the relationship and taking it beyond defense and security to new heights that encompass exchanges of cultural exchange, cooperation in education sector, enhanced economic activity, as well as giving a boost to people contact. So the visit has provided an opportunity to the leadership of both the countries to review and identify areas which merit attention and which are going to be addressed in coming time and from here on as well.
Your Excellency, both countries have also, been closely coordinating the Gaza peace plan. And, what concrete steps are being discussed in terms between Islamabad and Amman to influence post-war framework as you see it?
There is a complete commonality of views on situation in Gaza or in the Middle East in general, and the Trump plan and the various other proposals which have been discussed in Turkey as well as in Doha and in other forum have been discussed, and very soon some outcome will take place. But as of now, I cannot tell you categorically. What are the prerequisites or what are the nitty-gritties of the of Pakistan's involvement or Pakistan's participation in various forums or in various consultations or in on Middle East situation.
Jordan has also taken a strong stance on the displacement of the Palestinians. What in terms of Pakistan and Jordan and their alignment with regard to this red line as far as the UN deliberations are concerned?
Historically, Jordan has over 4 million Palestinian refugees. Now many of them are now Jordanian. So the Palestinian issue is at the heart of Jordanian diaspora, and West Bank, especially with respect to West Bank, the holy site, the sanctity of the holy site, and ensuring that they are available to the worshippers is one of the main pillars of Jordan foreign policy. So that aspect there, Pakistan and Jordan have complete unanimity of views on addressing situation in Palestine. Both are strong advocate of two-state solution. Both intend to raise the humanitarian support in Gaza, and also to ensure that peace prevails in the aftermath of the peace accord, peace plan, which has been presented, which has been proposed by U.S. President. So I find complete commonality of views and a total alignment on Palestinian issue between Pakistan and Jordan.
Your Excellency, with regional diplomacy intensifying even as we speak, what role does Pakistan expect Jordan to play?
Jordan welcomes any positive role that Pakistan plays towards addressing the worsened situation in Gaza. May it be a humanitarian situation, may it be ensuring peace and also the continuation of the ceasefire. Jordan expect Pakistan to play a proactive role in addressal of the situation in Gaza. The leadership did highlight uh, in detail the prevailing situation in on our western border, and also the whatever is happening in Afghanistan. A brief backdrop of the details of the talks which have taken place both in Qatar as well as in Turkey was also mentioned during the discussion. And Jordan leadership has given an assurance that on their part, whatever possible that they can do, they will help in ensuring that the Afghan side understand the intricacies and and how to effect peace in this particular area.
Your Excellency, even moving beyond Gaza, also, in terms of the coordination, in terms of our opportunities to elevate Pakistan and Jordan relations, trade, defense, political coordination, what do you see as the path forward for us, the two nations?
We have a strong relationship on defense and security, which dates back to early 60s until today also. We have, both countries have, a very historical stance that they have is that both were at their doorstep at most critical time of their history. From 1967 to 1971, Pakistan actively supported Jordan in addressing the threat that it faced at that time from Israeli side, and similarly, Jordan also helped us in whenever we needed support at a very difficult time. So that is there. As regard even not, in this particular visit also, the King of Jordan had a detailed review of Pakistan defense industry and its products, and showed interest in various products of which have been developed indigenously, and hope that this relationship in defense and security will further, it will bring more positive results, both in terms of promoting our defense industry as well as developing more strong relations for peace and security. As regard economic relationship, yes, it has been identified. Current the volume is certainly it needs to be raised, and very soon in next year there are going to be bilateral visit which are pertaining to commerce industry and other forums which are dealing with the economic economic relationship that they will take place, and the both country will address this particular area as well. As regard people to people contact, we have recently signed various MOUs, and the two significant are the MOUs between Pakistan Broadcasting as well as Jordan Radio, Pakistan TV, and Jordan Broadcasting. Similarly, establishing a Pakistani chair Jordan University, and also enhancing culture to culture contact, promoting cultural contact between Jordan and Pakistan. So these steps certainly are going to address all those areas that you have mentioned in your question. Hopefully, in coming years, as a result of this positive outcome of this visit, the relation will get diversified and they will get a new boost also.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. I know that there's been a lot of the kind of visit that we've seen, the kind of interactions that we've seen as far as the King Abdullah II and, of course, the Prime Minister and all the dignitaries at this time, and how it signals as we move forward with our relationship with Jordan. I'm going to move on to Rula Samain. Rula, as far as the historical significance of this visit, we've been talking to Ambassador Ajmal Iqbal also, but how do you see this at a time when, of course, we see regional diplomacy shifting, becoming more preactive, preactive all over the world at this time? How do you look at this visit and what does it signal internationally, in your opinion?
It is indeed a historical visit, as you just mentioned, and it sends a powerful message about the importance Jordan places on renewing and elevating its partnership and its ties with Pakistan. The timing and the symbolism are intentional. Both reflect Jordan's commitment to uplifting strategies, partnership across the region and beyond. Jordan and Pakistan, they have a very strong relationship, and the official relationship started in 1984 and 48. And it's well to know that in the past last 2 months, both His Majesty King Abdullah and the Prime Minister, Mr. Sharif, met in two summits. Met on the sidelines of the two summits and discussed also very important points in peace summit on Gaza and Sharm el-Sheikh, and in also New York during the Arab Islamic Summit. So the ongoing diplomatic relations are historical, and this visit is as well as historical.
From a peace and reconciliation perspective, what message does this send globally, as far as Pakistan and Jordan both, on peace in the region, on stability in the region, all over the world?
His Majesty's, the 2 days visit to Pakistan came as an invitation from Mr. Al-Khatib, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, and it underscores the trust and the strong relationship and the respect between two leaders and the two countries, and this is the base of any kind of relationship. And both realize and the importance of and need for bilateral and international cooperation to advance peace and stability in the region.
In terms of, Gaza remains the center of global concern, and of course, for Muslim countries like Pakistan, like Jordan, it takes center stage. In terms of that diplomacy moving forward, do you see it, being renewed? Do you see a renewed vigor in that? Do you see it as a cumulative effort now?
Indeed, Gaza is at the heart of Jordanian diplomacy, morally, politically, strategically, and Jordan has consistently been the leading voice advocating for justice and stability for Gaza, and we always, His Majesty reaffirmed Jordan's unwavering position, no displacement of the Palestinians, and always push for a sustainable peace. And I can see as well now that Jordan and Pakistan spoke with one voice concerning Gaza and the Palestinian people, and push for, the political resolution concerning the conditions that are happening in Gaza. When we talk about the two-state solution and the importance of both bilateral and international coordination to advance this peace process.
In terms of global concern, how important do you say, like you mentioned, the coordination, is it going to be, and do you see it extending beyond, of course, our other relationships between other countries who enjoy good relations with both Pakistan and Jordan?
I do see it as this is the core of any kind of relationship. Humanitarian relationship is an important aspect for any kind of relationship, and seeing pain, seeing agonies, countries like Jordan and Pakistan and the friends will definitely stand together to stop this pain and agony, using all the international laws and all humanitarian aspects.
As someone who specializes in interfaith dialogue and reconciliation, do you think that organizations like the UN that we've seen, unfortunately not have the kind of effect that one would have hoped for. Do you think that changing radically as, advocacy for peace increases all over the world for countries like Palestine?
When we talk about interfaith, we always say it's good when you have a good relationship with your creator, with God. It is as well good. It's very important that you translate this kind of relationship with with the connection that you have with others around you. With the dealing with others, regardless of their backgrounds. And as a peace advocate, we always say that we reject hate, we reject killing, we reject terrorism, and stand with peace, and we stand against all kind of evilness. We stand strong against all kind of evilness, and try to promote harmony, love, and respect. And now I can see that people with the social media and all that's been, all the news that's been covered about Gaza and the Palestinians, about their agonies. I think yes, it's now the time, the right time to stand in the face of all pain, all evil, and try to look at life in a different perspective, in a humanitarian perspective.
In terms of moving forward, do you see an extended role for the Islamic countries when we look forward? Of course, the Gaza peace plan also, and of course we want there to be lasting peace in Gaza. Do you see this role extending? Do you see, as far as the Islamic world is concerned, as far as the Islamic countries are concerned, to what has transpired till now? Rula, can you? Rula, are you still with us?
The I can't hear you.
Do you see? Can you hear me now?
Yes, clearly.
So the Islamic countries, I'm saying that the role that they have played, of course, they have in their capacity to advocate for peace for Gaza. Now, now that we come to this juncture where we want lasting peace for Gaza, there is the Gaza peace plan also. Do you see this role extending further as far as the Islamic countries are concerned?
Jordan has been advocating for peace. His Majesty King Abdullah has a title, a King of Peace, because he is truly probably one of the most leaders who spoke about peace consistently and the peace in the region. And he always says that in order to have peace in our region, we should have a solution for the Palestinian issue. And now that any collectiveness, any one idea, one collective idea is very good idea. And having all the Islamic leaders joining together and agreeing for stopping war and promoting peace is an excellent step always.
Right. Thank you so much.
It's
I think there's also a disruption in audio, but thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for joining us and giving us your very valuable input. I'm going to be moving on to other guests we have with us at this time. AYESHA Malik, who's Senior Research Fellow at RSIL, and also, of course, Bilal SOOFI, who's an international law expert. Thank you so much for being with us at this time. Overall, of course, at this time, we are looking at a world which is waiting for the Gaza peace plan to how it will pan out for those that continue to suffer in Gaza. We have with us Bilal SOOFI. Mr. SOOFI, how do you first of all look at this Gaza peace plan as it is envisaged, and do you think that it is as it's advertised, as it is looked at? Is it going to be a solution for lasting peace, first of all, in your estimation?
Well, thank you very much for taking me on this. I think it is not very clear at the moment when you say, will it lead to lasting peace? And that is the purpose and the idea of every citizen in this country, and also all conscious citizen in any country want peace in Gaza, in Middle East, and want a long-term solution of the Palestinian issue And for us, the long term solution means a two-state solution as a minimum, uh, which basically is also in conformity with UN resolutions and the way forward presented on more than one occasion by United Nations Security Council and other bodies as well. Whether this plan will lead up to that, we need to see the exact text which is likely to be adopted tomorrow. And if the information or the news that is coming is demonstrating the right cause or a framework in which things are moving, there is a possibility that some phrases will be used to give an indication that the right of self-determination of Palestinians will be given due regard to. For us, that will mean, or that should mean, going towards a two state solution as we move on. And I think if that is a formulation, ideally the two state solution should be mentioned in the text of the resolution itself. The remaining uh, the remaining structure of the force which is being raised or its infrastructure needs to be also under a very clear, crisp mandate. There should not be a lot of confusion about the nature of mandate that is being conferred on them. And the primary mandate must be to ensure peace in the region. So let's see what comes out tomorrow as a final draft.
In terms of what's happening, of course, we, like you said, that there needs to be clarity in terms of, what the terms are and what happens tomorrow. But in terms of the conduct at this time, when we look at what's happening, a lot is being said, a lot is being reported at this time. How does it align or conflict with, Geneva Convention at this time? If you look at what's
Well,
happening
obviously, the
currently.
Geneva Convention or the law that we call international humanitarian law is a law which says whenever a power is occupying any territory, it has to behave in a certain manner. So the behavior rules have been laid down in the Geneva Conventions and the surrounding humanitarian law practices and customary norms, including the subsequent additional protocols as well. Uh, Israel is visibly violating the all norms relating to as an occupying power. We have this finding very clearly reflected in the proceedings of the International Court of Justice, and the entire uh, indictment, entire prosecution process in International Criminal Court has this as its centerpiece, that as an occupying power, it's a complete misuse of authority. It is led to war crimes and so on. So let's see if this new structure is able to protect also or ensure that the principles and the Geneva Conventions are well enforced during the tenure that uh, this force is there, because the force will have an obligation onto itself to make sure that the territories it is supposed to supervise, guard, or protect must be free from any violations of the Geneva Conventions.
In terms of, you mentioned war crimes also, and we look at, the destruction of civilian infrastructure, we look at humanitarian aid, those that propagate aid, even those, and we saw what happened with those Futellas also, and those that have only wanted to do good being held, and hostages, and all that has transpired. In the wake of all of that, do you think it's only going to matter at this time, leaving international law aside, how strongly the US sort of manages to get this through, and how strongly, and how clearly it wants for there to be these terms to be acceded to, in terms
Well,
of how
frankly,
the
we
world
have
is
to
going.
take it. Yeah, we have to take this in stages. Uh, when I said that the long-term direction should be some sort of a two-state solution, that can't be provided upfront in a initial resolution. But yes, the direction should be towards that larger goal. But for an interim, there is absolute need to make sure that convoys of food reach the Palestinian camps and reconstruction commences, and the civil facilities that are provided to any population in any civilized cities is gradually made available to them after this wake of destruction and bombing that we have seen, which is unprecedented in recent history, unfortunately, and the killings that we noticed are also unprecedented. So, step one clearly is to make sure that the peace continues. There are no further atrocities on the Palestinians. And if we are able to find some sort of a political or legal or UN mandated solution for which efforts have been going on, that is a good development as a starting point. But then, as I said, as we move on, all parties have to move towards the direction of the two-state solution. And I say so because that's a sentiment, a collective sentiment in Europe. That's a sentiment in the US, at least in the public. We see that evidence continuously in terms of massive protests that again are unprecedented in nature throughout Europe and in US cities as well.
Mr. SOOFI, you mentioned, of course, these protests that are unprecedented, but, and I think I've asked you this question a while ago again, but, as we look at what's happening in Gaza, it is a case in point for, all that is against humanity. It is a case in point of all that is, against humanitarian law, international law, Geneva Convention, UN resolutions, anything that's humane. How do you think the world is going to look at this? How do you think that that the students of law are going to look at it as a case in point for the efficacy of international law?
Well, that is the first thing which everyone asks me whenever I stand up to give any talk relating to international law issue, whether it's a university, it's a college, it's a group of people, it's an international conference, local or abroad. That is more or less the first question that is thrown at me as someone who has spent his time in international law work and academic work, that where is international law? If it couldn't protect what has happened in Gaza, then the efficacy of international law is put to test squarely. So I understand the reputation of international law as a norm, as a global regime has been dented, it has been severely bruised, singularly on account of this incidents in Gaza and the atrocities by the Israel. But we still have to retain faith in the larger norm. Nevertheless, while we may be critical of international law, we may be disappointed in international law, but at the same time, it still exists as a standard against which the conduct of the states is measured. So when India, for example, holds in abeyance a treaty, we say it is a violation of international law and the Vienna Convention. So again, the standard is that of international law. When India tries to attack a neighboring country or says it wants to have an Akhand Bharat and take over the neighboring states, we say it is a violation, potential violation of the 1945 UN Charter. And even now, as you see in the Gaza issue, while President Trump is steering the entire discussion and the background negotiations on this amongst the 8 states that are likely to. At the end of the day, the entire consensus is being converted in a UN resolution, which is under the UN Charter. So the legal mandate is so considered to be an inbuilt norm that it must be adhered to, it must be adopted, and the conduct needs to align with that. So while the international law has suffered on account of this particular incident, and now, of course, on account of its failing in Kashmir issue as well, still it continues to be the norm that we should not lose sight of and make use of as and when it is available to us or to our strategic interest.
So you're saying that, in a sense, it's being used as a yardstick to assess what is, what is right and what is wrong, and not so much as the efficacy part of it, the implementation part of it, which we know as it is it's weak in, right?
Yeah, you have a point. I mean, yes, as a norm, it has to be taken as something which has been practiced, which has matured over centuries, gradually over a period of time. Today, we have the number of we have number of conventions, we have bilateral treaties, we have legal arrangements. Quite a few of them are actually functioning at the same time. There are international bodies, regulators that are continuously functioning, regulating global trade, movements of aircrafts, movement of people, mutual legal assistance, and so on. So I wouldn't lose complete faith in international law. All I would say is that yes, the norm exists. It has efficacy in certain specific areas, which is wherever the states have agreed to sign that they'll accept the jurisdiction of the organization under which they work in that area. But in certain areas, it does not have efficacy, especially if there are countries who choose to stay out of a certain legal framework. But despite that, developing countries have a momentum we have seen this over and over again to develop institutions, even if there is a violation or some power like United States has stayed out of, for example, Law of the Sea Convention of 1982. US is still not a party, if I remember correctly, and yet it has still come up. We have the International Criminal Court, which was always opposed by the U.S. government, but developing countries' momentum eventually saw that it actually became a reality. So all is not lost from a developing country's point of view, from a Islamic country point of view in the area of international law.
I know that you're short of time, but a very quick question before you have to leave. In terms of what happened, you mentioned Pakistan and India. In terms of what happened post Pahalgam, and also the treaty and the violation of it, and what followed from the Indian side, the only thing that seems to have really made a difference is Pakistan's deterrence, our own capability, our own power at that time that we had to demonstrate at that time. At the world stage, on the world stage, do you think that international law has made any difference to those violations that came from the Indian side?
Well, certainly, I think it has made a difference. Certainly, Pakistan's demonstration of its power had its own political impact. I mean, you shouldn't mix analysis in two different separate lanes. Lane one is the political lane in which whatever you do, that is completely evaluated separately. And the lane two is a technical lane of international law, which is a language used by international bodies and international states. And again, as you notice, in Pahalgam, in these operations, India did not receive any supporting voice from any direction because for the last several months they have been consistently violating international law norm at various jurisdictions in various jurisdictions, like in Canada, in USA, the spy networks was caught in Middle East, and apart from
Right. Right. Thank you so much, Mr. AHMER Bilal Soofi. Thank you for being with us. I'm going to Ayesha Malik, who's a Senior Research Fellow at RSIL. Thank you so much for being with us. Ayesha, when we look at, BOP, ISF structure in terms of ensuring governance, security, humanitarian relief in Gaza, how effective do you find them?
Well, I think from the latest iteration of the resolution, which has been floated as of Friday, we have very, very little mechanisms in place to tell us exactly how the board of peace would operate and exactly how the ISF would operate. Now, it's quite clear that a lot of Arab and Muslim countries actually want that to operate just like a Chapter 7 peacekeeping resolution, a mandated operation under the Security Council. But the US has a very different idea. It wants this to be a NATO-led organization just with Security Council resolution backing. And so I think that we're seeing, and especially because the Russians have now given a counter resolution in which they're saying that this should be something within the UN Security Council, the UN Secretary General should go away, prepare a report about how a peacekeeping mandated operation would run. We're kind of seeing that play out in the Security Council, the issues with regards to the resolution and actually having these two operations, these two boards. So you have the ISF, and then you also have the Board of Peace, which will govern and reconstruct Gaza. Now, reconstruction in terms of a peacekeeping operation, in that we've seen them in the past in Kosovo, in the Balkans, and also in Iraq, have generally been quite bad and quite far-reaching in terms of the effects that they've had. They've generally been an occupying force, again, so we've already got Israel as an occupying force, and perhaps we'll also see the ISF be one now. And also the fact that there is such a broad mandate given to these operations, so broad in terms of the governance included in it. And I think that the resolution really falls short in a lot of ways, primarily the issue of disarming Hamas. Now, Hamas has agreed that it will put down its offensive weapons, but it has not said that it will put down its defensive weapons. And it believes that it is the role of every Palestinian to be able to carry arms in defense of themselves against an Israeli occupation. And the whole issue of whether these non-state armed groups, even aside from Hamas, are going to put down their arms, especially when you have Israel, which has breached the ceasefire so many times since Trump put it into place. But also otherwise, the goal for Palestinian statehood has not really been clearly laid out in the resolution. And I think that this is one of the qualms that many of the Arab and Muslim states have cited with regards to it, in that it kind of says a very, very flaky term that conditions may finally be in place for a credible pathway to Palestinian self-determination. Now, finally, with the resolution on Friday, we've had the US say that they're going to hold talks between Israel and Palestine. Of course, the Israel and Palestine that they're talking about is a Palestine led by the deeply unpopular Palestine Authority. And it's not acknowledging Hamas in any kind of role or in any kind of coalition government between the Palestinian Authority and Fatah or Hamas, which would be there in the Gaza Strip. So it really falls short in a number of ways. And in terms of how this would actually be carried out, frankly, from the resolution, we don't have a clear idea at all.
Okay, but in terms of clarity, we've also been talking just before, to AHMER BILAL SOOFI. In terms of clarity, do you think, what comes out tomorrow perhaps will define what kind of force, and the terms at this time, as far as the two-state solution is concerned, and where, Israel stands on that?
So I think that with the Russian counter-proposal saying that this should go under the UN Secretary General, and also that there should be terms in place to lay out the pathway for a two-state solution, if we have that delay in place with the Secretary General going away and making that report, I think we will have more clarity. But if the US gets its way tomorrow and manages to push through this resolution, then I think that we're going to have a very, very vague Security Council resolution. We know from past Security Council operations, including the one in Libya in 2011, when we have vague terms in the resolution, it generally translates very, very badly on the ground.
In terms of, regional dynamics, what challenges, in your opinion, exist in getting countries to contribute troops, for the ISF, of course, without escalating tensions?
So I think in terms of escalating tensions, I think that we are going to have a Chapter 7 authorized ISF, whether it's going to be under the UN Security Council or whether it's going to be a coalition, kind of like a NATO force, because we've already had the terms floated that they will be able to use all necessary means, which means that escalation is therefore part and parcel of what the ISF may have to deal with. I know that Pakistan and a number of other countries want this to be a very traditional UN peacekeeping force. You'll go in with your UN blue berets, and really you'll be there to keep the peace. From the ISF draft, it doesn't seem like that is the case, and it seems like there's going to be a much more peacemaking, much more enforcement, much more robust mandate for the ISF. And I think one of the primary issues currently it's playing out with the US in the middle between Israel and Turkey, because Israel does not want to accept any kind of Turkish involvement. Turkey has long backed Hamas. A lot of Hamas fighters in the course since October 7th have been treated in the hospitals in Turkey too. And Turkey definitely wants to roll in it, primarily because of its links with the Muslim Brotherhood and the Muslim Brotherhood part of Hamas, and wants the future role in the Gaza Strip, much like it's taken a very big part of the future role in Syria. So I think keeping Turkey out of the force is going to be something that countries will struggle with in the future, and also the nature of whether this is going to be under the UN Security Council, where operations will be governed by the Secretary General, which it seems Russia wants and a few other countries seem to want, or whether it's going to be a very much US-led thing where you have a very, very broad governance mandate.
Do you think that there are chances, there are risks to Gaza's stability, if this resolution passes, participation in that sense by ISF, but ISF participation is delayed or limited, in your opinion?
Well, I think that the US has already said that there will be no American boots on the ground. So what we're looking at largely is going to be a Arab and Muslim country run ISF. And I think that unfortunately we largely see that peacekeeping operations are run by global South countries. So global North countries say that we need a peacekeeping force here, and it's global South countries which provide the troops which are contributing to the peacekeeping force. And this has been something that we've seen since the US debacle in Somalia, and we had the whole issue with Black Hawk Down. So since then, the US said, I don't want to get my troops killed, and it's largely Black and brown countries which are sending their troops to these dangerous situations where they're in peacekeeping operations. So in terms of how those dynamics will play out, I think that the forthcoming ISF especially will have to deal with the issue of non-state armed groups and whether they will actually lay down their arms. And I think putting that in the context of the fact that you still do not have a ceasefire, which is actually effectively in place from the Israeli side, how are you going to actually keep the peace in such a dynamic where you can't really ensure that Hamas is putting down its weapons, which it actually shouldn't give you, given you have the Israeli occupation continuing. And also Israel is more than likely to lay the blame on Hamas for its continued presence in the Gaza Strip.
So in terms of the future, in your opinion, peace at this time seems very fragile, to say the least. Even if we look at, the best case scenario, in your opinion, whatever comes forward tomorrow.
I think it looks fragile. I think that the latest ceasefire has been quite a hopeful one. I think most of the development in terms of a pathway to peace has come from Hamas, has come from the fact that Hamas has said that we will put down our offensive weapons, has come from the fact that Hamas has said that we won't have a role in the Gaza Strip in the future, but we want a coalition government which is representative of the Palestinians, and we want that to leave out the Palestinian Authority. So in terms of whether peace remains fragile, I think it will just be really at the behest of Hamas and how much more willing it's going to be to buckle down to any pressure and concede. And I think that perhaps Hamas at this time, given that they fought so well for 2 years, and given the fact that Israel has fought a seven front war, and yet the one that they haven't managed to win has been that on the Gaza Strip, I don't know whether Hamas should be making many future concessions to Israel and the US, which is acting on behalf of Israel. So I think the fragility of peace rests on a number of actors, and it rests on the fact that on how much more willing Hamas is going to be to bend over backwards to satisfy the international community and to satisfy Israel. But I think that this is the best chance for peace we have now, and I'm hopeful that most of the guns have fallen silent, most of the fighting has stopped after such a long period of 2 years.
In terms of rebuilding, reconstruction, of Gaza, in terms of seeing a hope, a future, do you think that, a time span, a time scale can be put on it when we look at from today onwards, for example?
Well, I think the UN has said that it will take a decade or so for the rubble itself to clear from Gaza, for any reconstruction to be possible. And I think that the green line demarcation and the red zone, which will be left in rubble for a long time, and the fact that the transitional force will be in place for about 2 years, means that we're not looking at reconstruction, which is going to be very fast. The fact that we've also had in the resolution, it does ask for the help of the World Bank. And we've seen that the involvement of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, particularly in the reconstruction of Iraq, was incredibly terrible for that population. And the way they involved neoliberal economic policies, they rewrote the tax code, they rewrote the constitution in Iraq. I think that if they get their way, the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip is going to have a multitude of factors in terms of the countries which are going to be involved, the countries which want to make money of such a thing, and also the fact that the estimates for how long it's going to take for anyone to be able to actually make money in that area will all depend on how much states want to be involved currently.
Right. Thank you so much for being with us, Aisha. Thank you for a very valuable input. That's all the time that we have. Of course, we'll know tomorrow in terms of what the concrete terms are. But at this time, one tends to view this as a glass half full rather than a glass half empty. And one hopes for restoration of peace also, and of course the rebuilding to start, which, as the UN has said, could take more than a decade. On that note, thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.